Let's bring in Congressman Dan Crenshaw, House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and House Energy and Commerce Committee, and has served our country valiantly. Good morning. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on. It's opened, 8 hours ago at midnight. It's 8:02 here on the East Coast. What do you expect to see today and in the days ahead? Because we've already seen the numbers higher than ever. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, more than 10,000 apprehended.
Right. I mean, I'm expecting to see what everyone is expecting to see, which is mass incentive to rush our border. That's what all of these migrants are doing. You've seen just over the last month on the Texas-Mexico border, almost a doubling in crossings and apprehensions over the last month. That's because migrants feel that this administration is not serious when they say they're going to secure the border. Now, the plan that they came up with, what Mayorkas has said about using Title VIII in order to enforce the law as opposed to Title 42, that's all great, as long as they do it.
Right.
Now, the problem is that every illegal immigrant who's been coming across our border and every cartel member who's been helping them come across our border realizes that by now they're usually not serious when they say they're going to enforce the law. There's a couple loopholes in their policy as well. You know, a migrant can say, well, the app wasn't working, so I had to cross this way. I mean, that's in their plan. They can also bring an additional family member with them. So it's kind of chain migration on steroids. You know, all that being said, if Mayorkas and Biden actually do what they just wrote down, we'll have a better situation. The problem is we totally lost trust that they'll actually do it.
Yeah, exactly. The House Republicans yesterday passed a bill to improve border security. And I know that you were one of the people who said a bunch of the other Republicans wanted essentially to label cartels terrorist groups. But you said we can't do that. Ultimately, they decided to go ahead and have a commission to study whether or not that should happen. But explain for the folks who are watching, Dan, right now, what your thinking is behind that.
Sure. So, look, first of all, if Biden would just sign H.R. 2, our border bill, you'd fix the border problem. All right. That bill is designed to stop all the loopholes, stop all of the asylum abuses, actually secure the border. It's a good bill. Yes, that we passed yesterday. The one problem that you're talking about there was if you're actually a border hawk, you know, folks from the Trump administration, this is members of the Freedom Caucus, all of the border hawks, the people who are really like myself, who are really hawkish on securing the border, we don't actually want to label the cartels as terrorist organizations, because then you create a very obvious asylum claim for millions of people who live in those territories. It would make our immigration crisis worse. So we believe you should have a different label for them, have the same authorities to go after them. I mean, you can't outflank me when it comes to being aggressive on the cartels. I'm the one who introduced the authorized use of military force against them. You know, I want to use every means available to target them, but you've got to be careful of the side effects. That's what that discussion was about. And ultimately what we did, and what I really appreciate the speaker doing, is allowing us to start a task force that I will lead. That will be a centralizing location for all future cartel legislation, because this legislation, H.R. 2, doesn't deal with the cartels. Right. So we're going to do that separately. We're going to do it methodically, and we're going to have a team of members with staff that will actually be a focal point for all legislation on cartels that crosses the multiple jurisdictions on the committees. And I'm really excited and proud to lead it. And I thank the speaker for doing this.
All right, so let's talk about what's happening at the border today. I would say this is going to turn out to a domestic Afghanistan. What you're seeing with the thousands pouring in that we're already seeing, overwhelmed Border Patrol, the Texas National Guard, or whatever the special forces are, is actually pushing people back for the first time, getting ahead of the Border Patrol. Chaos in New York as the city, overwhelmed, is sending against their will, against the county's wishes, illegal immigrants into the suburbs. There is no place to put these people. They're breaking our system. And as the Border Patrol came out and said, if anyone is dumb enough to believe the lies from the White House about our border, seek help. Stop being manipulated by the White House and mainstream media lapdogs. They are lying to you. Our border is on fire, and they throw more gas on the fire. Dan, how is letting 6 million people in, who we know nothing about, helping our country?
Well, it's not. Yeah, that's why we made it such a priority to pass a border bill and to highlight this for everyone.
And they said it's dead on arrival.
The only thing that
the White House
gives me
says
some
it's
kind
dead.
of consolation is that is that the main problem is in New York, which is, of course, a liberal voting environment that Biden actually has to listen to. You know, and even they're saying we can't handle this anymore. Democrats at one point have to listen, and I'm sorry because you live there, but you know the fact remains is that the fact that this is happening in Democrat-held areas. Maybe that's the one thing that gets this administration to listen, because yeah, the border is on fire. It's been on fire. There's no new news here. It's just getting worse because the Biden administration has given all the signals that they will not enforce their own laws. You know, they said they're sending the military down there, so people think in their heads, oh, good, the military will be down there to actually secure it, to deter people. No, they're just going down there to process people, because what Biden doesn't want is the appearance of chaos, but they'll still want to process people and get them in legally. You know, Democrats have never passed any border security legislation. They passed legislation that would make it legal as opposed to illegal, and then they can just say that millions of people are coming in legally. So you know they're not serious about this, and look, Republican voters got to get out and vote and win elections so that we can actually and sustain those majorities. And so that we can win in 24 so that we can actually fix this.
What's going to be left? Colombia, Georgia, Uzbekistan, Ecuador, Brazil, China, Peru, Kazakhstan, Russia, Guinea, Afghanistan, Jamaica, India, Turkey. All these nationalities, citizens have arrived at our border over the last 48 hours. This has been reported back to us, Border Patrol, back to our reporters, back to us. The word is around, not only in Central and South America, around the world. You get in here, you can stay here. Dan, and how are we going to afford this?
Yeah. Well, you can. Like, this is obviously a huge strain on any kind of resource that we're talking about, any kind of infrastructure, whether it's education or healthcare or what have you. And this is a fundamental thing that Democrats don't understand. Okay? We say, look, if you take a poll around the world and you say, where do you want to be right now? They'll say the United States of America. That seems like a good spot. So of course they're going to come if you let them. Democrats can't comprehend that very simple notion. And so then you ask, well, shouldn't there be some kind of standard or filtering process, or at least a line that someone has to get in to come inside the country? Otherwise it's a completely unsustainable situation. And they he and haw and they say, well, we don't know. What about compassion? What about our feelings and all that? And I'm like, screw your feelings. We've got to do what's actually right. We've got to do what makes sense and what is rational. And you have to have a line. You have to make people stand in the line. It cannot be a free for all. Look, this bill we passed yesterday is our message to them that says, look, you've got to work with us. Right. And when it comes to passing the budget later this year, which Biden does have to sign, you can bet that there will be provisions of H.R. 2, our border bill, in that force them to take action.
Well, because it is the headline all across the United States today about let's see what happens. Nobody knows more about it than you do sitting down in Texas. Dan, thank you very much for joining us live.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks.
And congratulations on heading up the task force. It's pretty amazing.
And Dennis.